Hi guys, it's Pete from MyJewelryBench.com. Today we're going to cover part 2 of using Jewelcraft, the add-on for Blender, and how to make this fantastic looking ring. Now, it's not the greatest looking thing I've ever created, but it does work for this tutorial. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. And if you can, share it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments box below, and I will do the best I can to answer every one of your questions. Hey guys, my channel's been growing and it's all because of you. I want to thank you all very much. Let's get started. What we're going to do here is we are going to do a symmetric design of a ring. And in this symmetric design, we are going to have an engagement ring that uses a 1-carat diamond, a head for a 1-carat diamond, and then it's going to have collars on either side or around the perimeter of the shank at the top. So let's first start with the diamond that we're going to use, because for some reason I like to do that. I start with a round diamond, and I'm going to use my tab key here and just pull up the size. We want 6.5 millimeters for a 1-carat diamond. Let's get this down to about 6.5. I'm going to pull that up and out of the way, and I'm also going to go add in a head, and it's a round stone. We're going to use a 6-prong head. So let's just grab a 6-prong head, and not like that one. Let's grab, and I'll grab this one right here, append. Size that up, and then I want to kind of match the size of the head with the diamond. Let's see. So that gives me a rough estimate about the head. Now I'm going to make the shank, and it's going to be a 3 millimeter wide shank at the bottom. Actually, I'll do 2 millimeters at the bottom and maybe 5 or 6 millimeters at the top. I'm going to give it some design interest. Shift A, and I'm going to add in a cube from the mesh menu. I'm going to size this down 2.0 millimeters square, and then I will size it along the x-axis, and I want to get my dimensions. I'm going to make this 50 millimeters. We're going to make this, Y would be the width. I'm going to make this 2 millimeters. And the thickness of the ring, I'm going to do 1.6 millimeters. So that if we look at it from the side profile, we are 2 millimeters wide, 1.6 millimeters thick. Now, you're going to enter edit mode with the cube selected, or your ring shank, and we're going to press Control R, and I'm going to add in 200 cuts. Press enter twice. Turn on my shortcut keys so you guys can see what I'm working on. Go back into object mode, and now I want to add in a shank size of 7, and I'm going to use the Jewelcraft tool to do that. We're going to select our size, and ring size US size 7 right there. Press OK, and there we have a ring size of approximately 7. And I think what I'll do is just make that, oops, Control Z, put it on the inner parameter so that we know the inside of our ring is approximately a size 7. With that done, I'm going to enter in side view so that I'm looking at this directly from the side. I'm going to go into, oops, let's do this here. One cool thing is if you have a modifier applied to it, and by using the Jewelcraft tool for the ring size, what you're actually doing is assigning this object to a curve and adding the modifier, which I've showed you how to do before. So we've already got a ring that's a size 7 right here, and then our cube, which we've loop cut and added a modifier for the curve, so we know our ring is, or our object is actually a size 7. And what I want to do here is to make this excuse me, I want to make this an object and not have any modifiers to it. So now that I've got the modifier applied so that this is 1.5 millimeters thick, one thing I want to show you is if you come into modifiers, the modifier tab with the wrench, turn this little button here on and then the one next to it, and when you hit tab you are actually in the you can see the entire object as it would be. Now we can see this is a little long, so I'm going to hit A to select all, and you might have to press that once or twice, and then I'm going to hit SX, and then I'm just going to size this down to about here, press tab, and then I'll use the Jewelcraft stretch tool, which stretches it and joins it. Now when I go into edit mode, my ring is the right size. So if you followed along, make sure you just did that same thing. So with that done now, I want to add some width to the top because I want this to have the surface underneath the diamond to be wider than the bottom of the shank, which is right over here. Here's the top. So I've showed you how to do this before. We're going to use proportional sizing. So in edit mode, press the 1 key. Zoom into right here is the face that I want to modify. So I'm going to use the face tool here. I'm going to select this face and I am going to rotate that a little bit, hit shift and alt, and then select the face above it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We'll do that again, shift alt, and now we've got that complete ring of faces selected. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and now I'm going to come over here and turn on my proportional editing, and then I'm going to, with my cursor over the area that I want to size, press S and then Y, because I want to make this wider only in one direction. So Y is the direction I want to make it wider in, and I'm going to stretch that out. And here you can see that it's giving me a problem, so I'm going to actually just do S, Y, and then I'm going to make my circle bigger with my mouse wheel. And now when I size it, you can see I get a much bigger proportion to that. And I'm going to just eyeball it to about there. That's about where I want it. Okay, so I've got that done. Now I'm going to add in 3 loop cuts to the parameter of this, but before I can do that, I'm going to apply my modifier. So make sure you hit the apply. You can also get that, I'm going to press Control Z and go back. If I select this and I hit Command or Function A, under the last option of that menu that comes up is apply all modifiers. You can get to it either way by using the wrench key or coming over and using the Function A. Now that that's done, I'm going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to deselect everything by pressing A twice. I'm going to hit Control R to get my loop, and then I'm going to just move my wheel 3 times, and that's not exactly where I want it. So we're just gonna, we'll just put 1 loop cut in there for now, and I'll deal with it later. Okay, back to object mode. And now I need to come up with a way to make my shoulders on the ring. And I'm going to do that by doing this a little bit differently. I'm going to hit, and now I want to make a shoulder. So I want my shoulder basically to come up from the side parameter of the shank and just come up so that it doesn't interfere with the head or the diamond. So let's make a shank by doing Shift A, and then we're going to come over to Mesh and select Cube. I'm going to size that cube down, so I'll use the see editor, where's edit? Edit's right there. With my item selected, we can see our size here. I'm going to select 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters, and now our cube is 2 millimeters. I want this to be about 1 millimeter in height, maybe 1.3. So I'm going to select the Z height, 1.3 millimeters. I want this to be 1.6 millimeters wide. So Y would be the width. Actually, X would be the width. Is X? No, Y is the width. 1.6 millimeters. And now I'm just going to stretch this along X. So I hit S to size, X to size along the X-axis. I'm going to make it about like that. And I'm going to do a couple more things here. I'm going to edit, go into edit mode, select Control R, and I want to put my loop cut along the longest part of this. I'm just going to put one there. Press that twice. Okay, so now I want to add in some loop cuts into this so that I can bend it. I'm going to hit Control R, and I'm going to add in a bunch of loop cuts just to get to about like that. When I'm happy, I'll just leave it like that. I'm going to select this one front edge with proportional editing off. Make sure that's off. I'm going to pull that out just to about like that. Press the Tab key to go back into object mode. Press Control A with that object selected. So I've got my shoulder selected. Press Control A, and I'm going to apply rotation and scale. What that does is it allows me to go back into edit mode and press Control W and get a nice tapered rounded edge on that. And that's about where I want it. Just about like that. Now you can see I can add and remove cuts to that with the mouse wheel. And if you don't have a mouse with a wheel, you should have one. I'll put a link in the description below where you can get that. So this is kind of what I'm looking for a shoulder. Now it still might be a little bit too thick. So I'm going to go back into object mode by pressing the Tab key. And I'm going to size this down to 1.1 millimeter. That makes it a little smaller. And I want to size the top of this part over here a little wider than that part. So we're going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to, with my edge tool selected, zoom in, select one edge right there, press the Shift and the Alt key together while holding those, press the edge next to it, and that puts a ring around the entire object. Come back to proportional editing, select that, press S, Y, and then just size this up ever so slightly just to give it a little bit of a taper. And you could use your circle to give it whatever design you want. I'm going to make this a little interesting and just kind of do it like that. Go back into object mode, pressing the Tab key, and there is our shoulder. Now, I have to make some changes to this because obviously it's not going to, just kind of drag it up here, move it over here, rotate it along. Well, we want to rotate it R, Y, and you can see it's just going to look kind of funky, and I could kind of move it where I want it and make it look good, but I've still got this flat edge. So going back to some of the styles and designs I showed you before, I'm going to Control Z or cancel all those changes out, and now I'm going to select, looking at it from the side view, our proportional editing is off. I'm going to hit the Tab key to go back into edit mode, select all, pressing the A key once or twice. If the object is in the middle, that's perfect. Move your cursor to the left, press Shift W, oops, we're still on over here, Shift W, and now I can bend this down a little bit. I'm just going to bend that down, you'll see why in a second. I'm going to move my cursor over to this side, and I'm going to hit Shift W again, and I'm going to bend that up so it has like a little S shape to it. Being in edit mode, now we're going to do one more thing. We're going to apply a modifier in edit mode. We've come down here to add modifier, and I'm going to use the mirror modifier. And you can see now I have two objects. One is in edit mode, one is in object mode. But if I move these, they move together, but in opposite directions. You can control that by the X, Y, and Z axis here. I do want it along the X axis, which is default. So I'm just going to move that up. I'm going to move this out. I'm going to rotate along the Y scale or Y axis. So I'll hit R, Y to rotate that about like this. I'm going to move that over here, maybe come down just a shade. RY again, and I'm just going to adjust this until I'm kind of happy with it. So there I have a slight shoulder to my shank, and of course it's not added. The shank and the shoulders are complete separate objects right now. I'm going to go back into object mode, pressing the Tab key, and now I'm going to bring down the diamond and the head. I'm going to select those with the Shift key, And I'll move those just down to where that is like that. And now I can make some adjustments to my shoulders. I'm going to select one. I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode. And I'm going to move that up and in just a little bit, about like that. So if we look over here, you can see the bottom edge of the shoulder is buried inside the ring shank. And that's what I want. Just like that. Pretty slick, isn't it? Okay, so with that done, now I like that look, but it's not giving me exactly what I was hoping to get. So we're going to make some changes to our ring shank. Go back into object mode. I'm going to select the ring shank itself. I'm going to press the tab key, and with the tab key selected and in side view mode, this is the face that we modified before, so I'll select my face tool. I'm going to grab that face. I am going to grab the opposite face. So both of those faces are selected. You do that with the shift key. You hold the shift key down while selecting the second face. I'm going to come back into proportionate mode, or proportionate editing, and I'm going to hit SY again, and now I'm going to make that just a little bit wider. So I want some width to that, right about like that. And that's the look I'm going for right there. You'll see in a minute why I want to do that. Press tab to go back into object mode, and now I have my shoulders, I have my ring shank, my head, and my diamond, and it's kind of how I want the base of the ring to look like. The next part is where we get into Jewelcraft. So now that you've got your basic design, the next thing I want to do is start adding some jewels. To do that, I have to make some interesting changes to this model, and I'm going to do it like this. First, I'm going to select my shoulder. I'm going to edit, and you can see in this I have a line that goes right down the middle of the shoulder. I'm going to go back to my tools here and select my edge tool. I'm going to select one of the edges there, and I'm going to hit Shift, Alt, and select another edge in that same line, and there's the line that I want. So now I want to duplicate that line and then separate it from the object, because if I duplicate it, it's still part of the shoulder. I need to make this change its properties, so I'm going to hit Shift D and make a duplicate copy, press enter, and then Control P, come down and see if I find separate, and there it is, separate by selection, which is just P. And now I have cube 2, wherever that is, cube 2, tab. We'll hit size so we can find it. There it is. And I want to make this a curve. So I'm just going to move this up just a little bit, just about like that. And I am going to, with that object selected, go to the Objects tab right here. And there should be a Convert option, which is down here. Convert Curve from a Mesh. And now you can see cube 2, and we'll call this, I'm going to rename this, Shoulder Curve, is a curve object, just like size was, and the rest of our objects are actually, solid material. So with that shoulder curve, now we're going to get into the fun part of Jewelcraft, and I'm going to add in 3 small diamonds, or maybe 4 depending on how many I can fit, with Jewelcraft. So select your Jewelcraft tool. We want to add in a diamond, so I'm going to select Add Gem at the top, and I'm going to make this, how about 1.8 millimeter, and press OK. And there's our diamond. And I want to bring that up a little bit. Yeah, we'll leave it there. And I'll leave it right there. And I'm going to select the curve, which is our shoulder curve. So with the diamond selected, the yellow glow, hold the shift key down, select your curve. Oops, if you didn't get it, try again. And I still didn't get it, so we've got the diamond, and now I've got the curve. And now here's the fun part of Jewelcraft. I can take this and make an array of diamonds around the perimeter of this. So to do that, we're going to hit the curve scatter button right here. So I hit that, and you can see it puts it on this side. It adds 10 diamonds. We'll open this tab here. We only want maybe 3 or 4, so I'm going to select 3 for now. And now here we have our starting and ending diamond. You can see are completely opposite of each other with the middle diamond stuck there on the side. What I want to do is move the end position so that my diamonds are in a row. So you're going to drag or use the little arrows to move your diamond's position just until you get them where you want. So here's that, and now I need to move the starting position of the first diamond because you can see it's way off base. So I'll take the starting position, I'm going to lower it down to about here, and now my end diamonds are cutting each other off. We're going to move the end out to about like so. Perfect. It's exactly what I want. So that's how I want my shoulder to look with the 3 diamonds. Pretty slick, huh guys? Okay. Now that that's done, I am going to add in the prongs. So now this is the cool part of Jewelcraft 2. So I'm going to select my 3 gemstones. So I've got 1 selected now, just the gemstone. I'm going to hold the shift key and select the other 2, so all 3 are highlighted. I'm going to come to the jeweling tab and press the prongs key, and that adds in these basic prongs. Just to keep this simple, I'm going to leave 2 prongs. You could add 3, 4, however many you want, but I'm just going to leave in the 2 prongs. I'm going to rotate them with the position key, or the position option, and you can see when I adjust that, it rotates the prongs in and around the diamonds themselves. So when I look at this from the side view here, you can see our prongs are all kind of in a row. If I look at this from the side, we've got some overlapping prongs, but for our practical purposes, we're not going to really see this too much. I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm going to leave it basically like that. Now you can also adjust the top height of your prongs depending on how high you want them. You can change the diameter of your prongs, and you can change the bottom of your prongs, how deep they go through your ring. So I'm just going to leave those right there, and for my work that's good enough, and I'm going to come over here and leave that just like this. Now I want to mirror this on the other side, so if I take this and select the diamonds and the prongs so that they're all selected, I can come over to the mirror tool and mirror along what would be the x-axis. So I'll hit mirror X, and you can see it puts it right on the other side, just like the first side we did. So now I've got diamonds that match on both sides. Pretty slick. And now I'm going to select off of that, and there is what I'm looking at right now. The next thing I want to do is actually put maybe 3 little diamonds or 4 little diamonds here, just along the top of the ring underneath the head. Now this is just to make something a little fancy, so let's take a look at how I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to add in another circle, so I'm going to hit Shift A, I'm going to come down to curve and a circle. I'm going to size this down. So I'm going to hit S and then bring my cursor in until I get that curve just about where I want it. And I want it to be under the perimeter of the diamonds. So with the arrow here, I'll move that up, size it again. But you can see what I'm running into. I have a complete circle underneath the diamonds. And what I want to have is a slight arch from one side to the other. So I'm going to size this circle along the X-axis. So with the S key pressed, then the X key, now I can make that a little bit oblonged and then size it a little bit smaller as a complete thing. And that's kind of what I want. But it also has to have a curve to kind of curve along the top of our ring. So to get to the next point, I'm going to hit Edit Mode. I'm going to select this little dot here. I'm going to hold the Shift key and select this little dot here. And I'm going to look at this from the side view, and I'm going to bring those down just a little bit so that I have like a little arch to this. And I'm still in proportion editing, so let's turn off proportional editing. Hit 1, And I'm going to bring those down so they get a little arch to that curve. And that's basically what I want to do there. Go back into object mode and let's save this. File, save as, and I'm going to call this Jewelcraft Project 2. So there's my ring so far, and now I want to add in some small diamonds. Now typically I would add in like maybe half pointers or 3/4 of a point, and you can select that by adding your add gems. I'm going to come over here and select 1.0 millimeter gemstones and press OK, and you can see it adds in the gemstone. And now I want to take that and I want to make sure that my circle, or the new curve that I have underneath this ring, is mirrored with the diamonds. So with that selected, the gemstone, I'm going to zoom in and select this new curve, shift, and then select the curve. Come back to your object, and then, oh, actually, you're going to come back to jeweling, and you're going to select curve scatter. Now it puts 3 diamonds there, and I'm going to move those with the start and end menu. I'm going to put that right over there. That's kind of where I want it to start. And I will move the end position. Let's add a 4th one. How about 5 stones? Maybe 6. And come back to the side view. And I'm just going to move that around until I'm kind of happy with it right like that. And that looks about what I'm hoping for. I mean, I'm not trying to design this ring for anybody in particular. I'm just designing a ring. So, you know, it may not look perfect, but it's kind of what I'm shooting for. Now, the only thing I don't like is that, of course, I've got this wide section of the ring here. My prong, my head is located right in the center. And maybe I want to get this a little closer to the head, so I'm going to size this down a little bit. So with that circle selected, I'm going to hit S and then size it down, get it right about there. And now these diamonds are where I want them to be, and I'm just going to select them. So all of just the diamonds are selected. I'll go over to the Jewelcraft tab, select prongs, and you can see it adds 2 prongs. I'm going to add 3, and then I'll just change the position and rotate them around until I'm kind of happy with how I want them to look. That's kind of the way I'm going here. I like that. I'm going to change the height, so just lower those a little bit. That's the look I'm going for. And now I can mirror these along the y-axis. So I'm going to hit each of these, select the prongs. So I select the first set of prongs, hit the shift key. I'm going to select a diamond, prong, diamond, prong, diamond, and so on until everything I want is selected, just like so. And now I'll come back to the Object tab under Jewelcraft and hit Mirror, and then Y. And there we go. I have a duplicate on the other side. Exactly what I'm hoping for. I'm going to deselect that, zoom out a little bit, and this is kind of the look that I'm going for. It's not done yet, but this is the look I'm going for. The next step is to add in the cutouts, which I showed you in the other video, but we're going to go through again and do it on this also. So what I'd like to do is start merging all of these objects together, except for the head, because that's going to be an object that we order from a catalog. So I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to add in my hole for the head peg. So I'm going to deselect everything, hit Shift A, come over to Mesh, and add in a cylinder. I'm going to make the cylinder, where is it? I'm going to make this 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter by 5 millimeters. And then I'm going to bring that up to this point so it's sticking through my ring. I'll make it a little bit bigger, S, and just make that maybe 1.3 millimeters. That's pretty good. Now with that done, This is going to allow me to create a hole in my ring shank. So with the peg selected, I'm going to hold the shift key down and press the ring shank so that the peg is the orange, the ring is yellow, and then I'm going to use the Boolean tool in the edit menu, select difference, and now I've got a hole in my ring shank. That's exactly what I want. Okay, now remember that our shoulders are separate than our ring shank, and these are actually modified with a modifier. So if we look over, we have a modifier on these, and I want to apply that modifier, so I will select my shoulders, hit apply all, function A, and I'm going to apply rotation and scale. My ring shank, there are no modifiers, we're good. But just to double check, I'm going to hit function A and rotate or apply rotation and scale. And now I want to take my shoulders and my ring shank and join them together with the Boolean tool. So I will go over to the edit menu, select Boolean union, and join those together. To make sure they're joined together, I always go into edit mode, hitting the tab key, select all objects with the A key so that everything is selected on that particular object, and you can see it's perfect. Okay. The next step I have to do is start adding in and joining all these pegs, all these little prongs, to my ring shank. So I'm going to go back into object mode, select each prong that I need to select. I'm going to hold the shift key down, select the next one, and then the third one. I'm going to select my ring shank, and then I will hit the union tool and join those prongs along the ring shank, and we can see that they're all selected because they are now part of the ring on this side but not part of the ring on the alternate side. So we're going to go do that to all the heads. I might do a couple at a time. I don't like selecting too many because the union tool can sometimes get confused. So I will select maybe just 3 at a time. And if you're wondering, guys, I have a speed button on my mouse. I think I've told you guys before, if you're not using a gaming mouse with an alternate button, you might want to start thinking about it, because the buttons on the mouse make just a little bit quicker all these functions. So now all of the prongs, all the little prongs for these little diamonds should be connected to our ring. And yes, they are. So now everything that is going to be metal, let's say this is going to be white gold, is all attached. Let's get to object mode, and now you can see we only have the object of the ring and the head, and then each of our diamonds is separate. Now, Jewelcraft has another neat little trick, so we're going to select our 3 diamonds on this side, come back to Jewelcraft, select the cutter tool, and we're going to allow Jewelcraft to add in our cutters. And there are our cutters. Now I want these to be individually, so I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete them all. I'm just going to add in a standard cutter for this one. I'm going to make the bottom a little wider because in 3D printing, for some reason, it causes a little problem with fill-in. Now these 2 here, I'm going to select together, hit cutter. I'm going to make those also a little bit longer so they protrude through our ring, just like so. Just makes it easier to deal with and clean out the ring later. I'm going to increase the size to about there. And now I can select that cutter and our ring, and then go to the edit menu and use difference. And you can see it puts a nice little hole through our model. And I'm just going to do that with each of the cutters I added. Okay, so there are my cutters, and I'll do again for the same thing on the other side. Go back to Jewelcraft, add the cutter, and I want to make the bottom a little bigger. And then I'm going to select the cutter, select the ring, and do a Boolean difference so that I get a hole. I'm just going to follow up and do all the stones. Now here I've got these selected. Now I'm going to hold the shift key down and go to the other side. I'm going to select just the diamonds. So all I want is the 12 little diamonds. I'm going to select the cutter. I want these to be a little deeper. I'll just make those deep, just like so. Perfect. I'm going to make these a little wider. Okay, now I've got that done, so I'm going to select each of these and remove them one at a time from the ring shank, just to make sure that I don't cause any problems with my model. I'm going to flip around. And I know this is boring, guys, but it does give you a good idea of how this is going to work. So now I've got that done. I want to make a couple more little changes to my ring, although this is pretty basic. I'm just going to give it some smooth surfaces. At the tab key, I'm going to use my edge tool here in edit mode, select an edge. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select the shift and alt key. While holding those, I'm going to select another edge so that the entire perimeter is selected around the edge of the ring there. And on the other side, while holding the shift and alt key down, now I've selected that edge, and both of those encompass the entire ring in edit mode. And what I want to do is Control W, and then I want to give this kind of a roundish edge to it. So in object mode, you can see we've got a nice little taper on the side of the ring. It just gives it a little more, just visually appealing. With that done, guys, that's it. That's the design of our ring. So I am going to just kind of give you an idea what this is going to look like by rendering it. I'm going to give these materials. Okay guys, so here's the rendered image of that ring, and I just kind of want to sped up through that. I do want to take this object now, this ring, and I am going to go 3D print it. And while it's 3D printing, I have to go install a ceiling fan. So I'm going to tackle that project while these are 3D printing. I'm going to do this both in regular resin and castable resin. So stand by for the 3D printed results are coming up in a moment. Well guys, it's been about 5 hours. I did my prints. The gray resin, which is standard Elegoo Mars gray resin, printed in about 2.5 hours, and the castable resin took about 5.5 hours. So I want to show you the results of the prints. And this is the result of setting up, doing your Blender design, getting it designed the way you want it, and then coming up with the final product. So this is the castable resin. It prints, the resin kind of, because it's waxy and softer, it does not print as good as you will see the regular resin, which prints, if I can get this to focus, prints really good detail, and I'm very happy with the results. Now I did design these with the ring size of a 7, and I'm not sure if Jewelcraft sizing was perfect. I'm going to go back to my own sizing because for some reason, this printed a little off. These are 6.5s on my ring size stick. So I just want to show you the results of the design, and this is what happens after you've created your project. Pretty cool, I think, myself, and I want to admit that they came out pretty good. But always accommodate yourself for shrinkage in your prints, and you should probably raise the size of your model once it's in sheet 2 box. If you're printing on the Elegoo Mars or the Epax, you should probably think about raising the size about 10%, just because you're going to get shrinkage during the print and you're going to get shrinkage in casting. So keep that in mind. I hope you like this. If this video was helpful and you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. There should be a couple recommended videos and the picture of the watch or clock dial, and you can hit that to subscribe to my channel. If you want to get notifications every time I upload, smash down on that little bell button and you will get a notification when I put up my next video. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.